Have you ever felt like, good just isn't good enough? Like you're constantly pushing for absolute flawlessness, in everything you do.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. The world of perfectionism. It goes way beyond just having high standards. It's like this deep-seated need, this drive for something that's often unattainable,
Hmm.
right? And then there's the harsh self-judgment on top of it all, and that worry about what everyone else is thinking.
Right. It's not just like wanting to do your best. It's this feeling that anything less than perfect is a failure.
Exactly. So today we're going to be unpacking all of this. We'll explore how this whole pursuit of perfection can actually backfire and make things, well, worse, honestly, for your well-being and even your progress in life. We've got some fascinating research to help us understand this better.
Yeah, it's interesting, because the way we think about perfectionism has really changed over time. I mean, it used to be seen as a straight up virtue, right? Like, oh, you're a perfectionist, that's amazing. But now we see there's this really important distinction. There's that healthy striving, the drive to excel, which can be, a good thing. But then there's what we call maladaptive perfectionism, that intense, almost obsessive focus on being flawless that can actually sabotage your efforts.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I mean, it seems kind of counterintuitive, right? You'd think that wanting things to be perfect would actually make you more productive, more successful. But I've been reading about this thing called, what is it, perfectionary paralysis.
Oh, yeah, perfectionary paralysis. That's a great way to put it. It's like imagine you're so worried about, I don't know, parallel parking perfectly on the first try that you just never even get in the car.
I can totally see that. You get so caught up in trying to do it perfectly that you end up doing nothing at all.
Right. The pressure to be flawless becomes so overwhelming that it actually leads to inaction or, you just give up on tasks altogether. You're so scared of not being perfect that you don't even try, which, when you think about it, is the opposite of being productive.
Makes total sense. So what you're saying is that striving for excellence is about putting in the effort, while perfectionism is about reaching an ideal that doesn't even really exist.
Exactly. And that can have some pretty serious consequences.
So what kind of impact are we talking about here? Beyond just, feeling stressed out, what are the real downsides to this?
Well, I mean, for starters, the research shows a clear link between this maladaptive perfectionism and, decreased productivity. It's ironic, but people who are perfectionists often get less done because they spend so much time trying to make everything flawless. But it goes way deeper than that. There's a pretty strong correlation with mental health issues, too, like anxiety, depression, even eating disorders and burnout. All that self-pressure, that constant feeling of never measuring up can really take a toll.
So this isn't just about, like, personality quirks. It has real consequences for your well-being.
Absolutely. And if you're always holding other people to those same impossible standards, well, that can definitely put a strain on your relationships too, right? You're basically setting everyone up for disappointment. And ultimately, it's going to erode your own self-esteem because you're constantly falling short of this ideal that you've created.
So then the question is, where does this all come from? Why are some of us so driven by this need to be perfect? Is it something we're just born with, or is it, something we develop?
That's a really good question, and it's something that researchers are still exploring. But it seems like, it's not so simple. There are definitely multiple factors involved. Early experiences can play a big role. For example, if you grew up feeling like you had to be perfect to get your parents' approval or, to avoid criticism, well, that can create what's called socially prescribed perfectionism. It becomes this ingrained pattern, like you're always trying to please others.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like you learn that your worth depends on being perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And if you had like really critical parents or you grew up with this constant fear of judgment, well, that can also contribute to these unrealistic expectations. You start to internalize those messages and they become part of your identity. But it's not all about childhood,
Right.
right?
Yeah, we can't forget about the role of, like, society and culture.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with these messages about achievement, about success, and then there's social media, right? Everybody's curating these perfect images of their lives. It creates this pressure to be flawless, to have it all together.
So it's not just something within us, it's also something that's being reinforced by the world around us.
Right. And it's important to remember that because it means that, we're not alone in the struggle. And it also means that we can learn to challenge those messages, those expectations.
Okay, so if some of this is learned, that means we can unlearn it, or at least learn to manage it, right? What are some practical steps that someone listening could take, like today, to start dealing with this perfectionism in a healthier way?
Absolutely. The first step, and it might sound simple, but it's really crucial, is just becoming aware of your own perfectionistic tendencies. Start paying attention to those thoughts, those behaviors, those moments when your need for flawlessness is actually getting in your way.
So basically, start noticing when it's happening.
Exactly. And then once you're more aware of it, you can start to challenge those thoughts, those beliefs. And one really helpful tool is to set more realistic goals. Perfectionists often set these ridiculously high expectations for themselves, and then, of course, they feel like they're constantly failing. So break things down into smaller, more achievable steps.
Yeah, don't try to, climb Mount Everest on your first hike.
Exactly. And there's a really great framework for setting goals that I think can be especially helpful for perfectionists. It's called SMART goals.
SMART goals. Okay, tell me more about that.
So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's basically a way of making sure that your goals are, well, actually attainable.
Okay, that sounds super practical. So you set specific, measurable goals that you can actually achieve within a specific time frame.
Exactly. And that can make a huge difference in how you feel about your progress because you're not setting yourself up for failure from the start.
So awareness and realistic goals. What else can someone do right away to start shifting this mindset?
Another really important piece is self-compassion. Perfectionists are often incredibly hard on themselves. So try to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend. When you inevitably make a mistake, because we all do, don't beat yourself up about it. Instead, acknowledge your effort, not just the outcome.
I like that. Give yourself permission to be human, to make mistakes.
Exactly. And try to reframe how you see those mistakes. Instead of viewing them as failures, see them as opportunities to learn and grow. Embrace the idea that imperfection is part of the process.
So to sum all of this up, it seems like what we're saying is that perfectionism,
Yeah.
even though it sounds like it's about high achievement, can actually be a major obstacle to getting things done and, feeling good about yourself.
Exactly. It's like this paradox, right? You're striving for something that's ultimately unattainable, and in the process, you're actually holding yourself back.
And the key is to recognize where it's coming from, those early experiences, those societal pressures, and then start actively challenging those unrealistic standards that we've internalized.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway. So, for everyone listening, take a moment to think about one area in your life where maybe, just maybe, that drive for perfection is actually holding you back. And then ask yourself, what's one small, even imperfect action you could take today to start moving forward in that area?
It doesn't have to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Just take that first step.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of perfectionism. And I think it's really just the beginning, right? There's so much more to explore about all the different strategies and the deeper roots of all of this.
Yeah, there's a lot more to unpack for sure. But hopefully this has given everyone some good insights to start thinking about.
Definitely. So until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, progress, not perfection.